hands. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, we messed up the intro, didn't we? Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of Hanshan Shon, and today I'll be talking about Great Expectations. And today, let's do a very 5 to 6 minutes quick summary about this book. So let's get this whole book started. Now, one thing I will mention about the Great Expectations is that it has a lot of purposes and stuff, but we'll get into that when we talk about the review. Our next episode of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. One great thing I will mention before we start is that Charles Dickens' life is parallels to Pip's life here a lot. So just keep an eye out for the story and compare it to Charles Dickens' life for my Darktron episode. Let's get this book started. Video started. Yeah, Hunter Chun is not a book series. If it was, I would have written 100, not 2,384 books. Moving on. So there's this boy named Pip, and he's the protagonist of the whole novel. By that, I mean the main character and stuff. And he was visiting his mom and dad, who are dead, so he's going to their graves, by that I mean, and does a childish assumption by just looking at how their names are spelled and how they're chiseled and stuff. Like, hey, this is how dad's name was chiseled, so I guess he was like this tall and this high because he chiseled this, so he must be like that. How are you gonna chisel a tombstone when you're dead? I don't know how he ever got that logical explanation, but it's not really logical. Now, next up, there's his brother, and he says he does the same assumption, too. And that's kind of about it. He doesn't know what they look like because the photographic cameras aren't invented yet. And then there's this convict man who comes in, grabs Pip, and throws him down, tries to beat him, but before he can, and almost kills him, says, "Where do you live? What's your name? What's your last name?" And asks him a bunch of questions that Pip is too terrified that he actually answers all of them. And boom! Lots of things happen around us. And you know what happens next? There's so much I would like to really say. He forces him to bring him food and other stuff, and lots, and a file to file off his leg iron chain that's stuck on his ankle, and then finally he has to go and do all that because of lots of reasons. Just because he's forced to, and if he doesn't, he's threatened to actually get his heart and liver thrown out and eaten alive. I don't know how he's gonna eat him alive though, because how is he alive when he's dead? Moving on to another part of this life, there's so many other things that I would like to mention in the book itself. Some more things things happen too. Charles Dickens has lots of expectations, and one thing about these expectations that Charles Dickens puts in the book is for Pip to actually get into the wealthy class. Eventually, he's forced to go to Santa's house to go play with a guy named Estella for a woman named Miss Havisham's. Yeah, that's her name, right? Yeah, that's her name, Havisham's assist for amusement. And then a lot of great things happen, and then Estella starts like, I gotta practice breaking hearts, like you taught me, Miss Havisham. Yeah, thank you. And lots of wicked stuff happen too. Then Miss Estella does a lot of great stuff. By great, I actually mean terrible stuff, because I don't know how this works, but terrible to them is a great deed. Yeah, I'm actually annoyed here. And, how are these people so evil? Next up, years pass, going like this, and eventually he's forced to stop doing this because of Miss Havisham's orders. Because Joe is forced by Miss Havisham to apprentice him stew. That is my reward. And gives him £25. Do not expect more payment from me, young gentleman. And yeah, he's actually dumbfounded a lot. And then there's this random stranger in the pub that gives this Pip a shilling wrapped in some weird green colored paper. And when they come back, they find out that the piece of paper is actually the two pieces of paper that's used to wrap it around is each £1 notes. So they got £2 and 1 shilling from that man. I guess they think that it's a mistake, but then it turns out later in the book we find out Pip, grown man, meets the same man who's also grown but looks very similar. Pip doesn't really look the same because, he was 30 at the time and he was a poor person at the time. finds out about the story that this guy told him to actually use wrapping, instead of wrapping paper, use paper money, each with £1 notes. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised by all this too. Next part I will say is that the Great Expectations has a lot of things to really talk about too. Charles Dickens made Pip do a lot of other things, like how should I mention this? I should say that Pip expected probably too much of it himself. He gets £500 every year from now on once he's 21 years old. And by the time he's like 23, he's already received £1,500, which is like a lot in today's money. Yeah, that's a lot. And then eventually then Pip invests a little bit of money into his friend's business anonymously, and years later, after he's hired as a clerk there, he reveals himself as one of the investors in it, as a little small investment. That's a lot, to be honest. Now, Great Expectations, that happens so much. How am I going to say this? There's something else to tell you guys about. After the original convict comes back, we find out that guy's name is Madwich, but also he goes by an alias called Polwick. I think that's his alias, right? No? Yeah, I just say Polwick. Yeah, Polwick. Turns out it's Provis, Uncle Provis. Let's just ignore that. Now, Uncle Provis comes around. I'll just call him Magwitch from now on because that's the actual name. Magwitch comes around and a lot of things kind of happen. He stays a while and then he has to flee the country, but is caught by the FBI. Open up! No, not by the FBI, but the London police. It's the London police. Open up! I mean, if the FBI opened up YouTube videos still existed back then, but FBI didn't exist, I guess they would have done the London policing, like, London police, open up! Smash, shatter, open up! I'm gonna handcuff you! Smash! Yeah, that's a lot of things that could happen there, but then again, it's not really funny too once I watch it. But then again, it's also kind of funny because, crashing in a grandpa's party by the FBI, I mean, what the heck? Let's just continue on with the story and forget that I even mentioned that. AI chatbot, if you're actually going to, discriminate this video because of, gunshots against little kids, I don't think I need your systems updated. Now let's get on with the next part of the whole book itself. Then, eventually, they weren't able to escape, but then Santa's house comes back, and, Pip loses his whole fortune. But then, Joe actually pays all his debts for him, and he's like, oh no, Joe did this for me? And, he repays Joe a lot. And Pip doesn't need to go to debtor's prison. Yay! And that's a lot to actually say so. Joe was caring for him after all. He was like a dad to him. Eventually, at the end of the book, there are actually two endings. I would like you guys to choose in the comments below which ending you like the best. There's an original ending and another ending which Charles Dickens' friend actually recommended him to do. Now, let's start with the official ending. Estella's in the garden, but we don't know that yet. Pip goes to Santa's house and discovers that the house isn't even there anymore. All that's left is a broken piece of wall and the garden, which is all that Estella probably has. Then Estella comes around, and there's a lot of things that happen here too. Estella, she is doing stuff on the ground and then weeps and finally has a heart. She hasn't remarried because ever since 2 years ago her husband died. And then, she eventually asks for Pip's friendship again, and they become friends again. That's how it ends. Now let's go for the original story. In the original story, Pip takes little Pip, which is Joe, and Biddy's son, Mrs. Gardner, Pip's sister, died a few years ago. Years and years ago, over a decade. And more things seem to happen there. Little Pip comes around, and then they bump into Estella, and they talk a little bit, have a little chat, and then little Pip is kissed by Estella. Gross, but sure, why not? It's the 19th century, guys. You can kiss anyone you want. I hope hopefully I came here. Okay, I probably hope no one finds out about this video ever again. Next up, more things happen, and then Nat finds out with this last ending where he says that all this despair and stuff is stronger than Miss Havisham's teaching, and that this finally led her to feel what he used to feel in his own heart. And that is the end of today's episode. And that's the end of Great Expectations. So that is the end of today's episode. I hope to see you guys on my next episode, and I'll see you guys then. Nan out. Peace. Boah!